the Afterlife tier list. But today,
Wait, let me throw this out first. Wait.
But this time, I'm here accompanied with it be Chris, or just Chris, or I don't know, just Chris. Just Chris. That's all I'm gonna call him.
Do we continue to exist after the death of the body? And if we do, what would that look like? I'm not suggesting that I know the answer to this question, and I also don't want to disparage any religious beliefs that help people come to terms with death. That's not really my bag. This video is just going to be analyzing some of the possibilities, and trying to figure out whether they're...
So there's nothing, heaven, hell, ghosts, reincarnation, infinite loop, simulation, one with all. These are some really good afterlives.
Yeah, those are.
So which one do you think, Chris?
Oh, that's a tough question, bro.
That is a tough question. Like, which one do you think we go to?
I mean, personally, like as a Christian, I'd hope there's a heaven. Really, I'm just praying that it's not nothing after.
It's not nothing. That's so real. That's honestly so real. I also hope it's not nothing.
Everyone can agree that that's the scariest option.
Yeah, it's like, well, we wouldn't even know. We wouldn't even know because it just doesn't exist no more. I personally think it's either like it's in between one with all, heaven, ghost. I believe ghosts are real, bro. I 100% think they are.
They're good or bad.
Damn, first one, nothing.
You die, and that's it. Nothing. You cease to exist. Death is the permanent end of experience. Eternal nothingness. This is the most straightforward scenario. Death is the end of life, so the idea that there is life after death is obviously false. Our fear of death is biologically programmed into us, and to an extent it's unavoidable. But maybe philosophy can help us reason our way out of this situation. Is death bad? Well, you might say that someone dying is bad, because they're not around anymore. That person was there, and now they're not. But I don't think this is actually the key to the badness here. Let me hit you with this thought experiment. Let's say your best friend in the whole world is this guy George. George spent years studying astrophysics. And he's about to go on an expedition to the Andromeda Galaxy to do research there for the rest of his life. You can't follow him there, and once he leaves, there will be no way to communicate with him ever again. That's a bit of a bummer. But now, let's say that instead of leaving, the rocket George is taking explodes immediately after launching, killing him instantly. The outcome is the same from your perspective. George is gone, and you'll never see him again. But the situation where the rocket explodes definitely seems worse. So the issue isn't just that George isn't around anymore. There's something important about the fact that George died. Okay, so instead of thinking about George, let's think about me. Death is bad because I won't exist anymore. And personally, I really like existing. Existing is pretty epic. Is it bad for me, though? When I'm dead, I won't exist. So who would it be bad for? It's easy to think that when we die, we enter into a kind of blackness.
That's a good question. Like, who would it be bad for? But it would really be for the people around you. But when you die, you would never know. Like, if it's nothing, then you would never know that, though. Well, I mean, you would, but like after, you wouldn't. Does that make sense? I guess a little.
And we place ourselves into it. It's as if we sink into this pit of nothingness, and we're trapped there forever. We end up in this strange realm with no thoughts, no sensations, no experience, and this is something that we somehow witness for eternity. But this doesn't really make sense. This is reifying nothingness. The comedian Norm Macdonald once said,
"And then I came to a realization that you and death will never intersect. As long as you're here, death is not. As long as death is there, you are not."
Yeah, but since you know it's coming.
Oh, but you don't want that.
He got this idea from the Greek philosopher Epicurus, who had a similar quote. "So death, the most terrifying of ills, is nothing to us, since so long as we exist, death is not with us. But when death comes, then we do not exist. It does not concern either the living or the dead, since for the former it is not, and for the latter are no more." Okay, but does it actually have to be bad for me for it to still be bad? Things can be bad in different ways. Putting my hand on a hot stove is bad because I'm experiencing the badness directly. Burning my hand is immediately and intrinsically bad. But let's consider a different scenario. Let's say I spend my evening scrolling TikTok. The whole time I'm mildly entertained. It's a neutral experience. But what if my friends had also invited me out that night? I was scrolling TikTok alone in my room, instead of cracking a few cold ones with the boys, which would have been way more fun. That time I spent scrolling wasn't intrinsically bad, but it was bad compared to what I could have been doing instead. This example illustrates the deprivation account of why death might be bad. Not existing isn't bad in an inherent way, but it's bad compared to all the fun, meaningful experiences I could have if I continued to exist. Okay, but let's take this non-existing thing a little further. What if I never existed in the first place? Would this be bad? Well, it seems bad for me because I do exist now.
I think about that a lot. Like, what if I just never existed in the first place? Like, what?
Yeah,
like what are the odds that I'm just here right now in this place?
The odds are very low, bro.
Very low.
But this runs into some major problems. Think about all the possible people that could exist. Let's look at our current generation right now. Let's say there are about 5 billion people who could reproduce, half men and half women. Each man could technically create a new person with each woman. And beyond that, every single egg-sperm combination of each of those pairs would also create a different person. If a different sperm won the race, I wouldn't be the same person I am now. I would be my sibling. As a rough...
Is that completely true, though?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Hold up. Nah, we gotta look this up.
No, you would not be the same person. Okay, you will be a different individual. You need genetic material that's the sperm. Yeah, but they try the egg is the same in each sperm. Each sperm.
Different information.
A different bro, it's like that's a whole different person. Yeah, hey, bro.
Billion women times 30 years of reproduction times 12 eggs times 2.5 billion men times 50 years of reproduction times a conservative 365 ejaculations per year times about 40 million sperm per ejaculation. That works out to this number, 15 with 32 zeros.
Good
and
God.
This is still only a tiny fraction. All of those potential people could also have children with each other. This could go on for potential generation after potential generation. If the deprivation account is true, you have to feel sorry for this infinite amount of people who never got the chance to exist. That seems like a bit too much emotional labor for me. Okay, but we can just fix this by adjusting the deprivation account a little bit. Instead of a deprivation of life, it's a deprivation of a life that actually existed at some point. This seems to have filled the hole I just poked in the argument. But there's still a problem. The section of time after your death isn't the only section of time you don't exist. You also don't exist before you're born. But who really cares about that? If you told me that I'm only going to live to age 50, I would be bummed out, and I would wish that I could live longer. But I don't wish that I was born 50 years earlier. We seem to care more about existing in the future than existing in the past. So to sum things up, non-existence after death is a complicated issue. Personally, I'm sympathetic to the deprivation account. I like existing a lot, but this is also the perspective of a guy who exists, which is definitely biased. I'll put nothingness in B tier.
Where do you put nothing at, Chris?
You made nothingness seem less frightening than it actually is.
Less frightening than it actually is, yeah.
I would give it a D, but yeah, I agree. It's about a B.
It's about a B. I also agree. It's about a B. It's about a B because you just wouldn't know. Heaven. It's time to go to heaven, my child.
Bro, that's classic.
Oh my God, classic me.
Ranking heaven in a video like this is a little tricky. Religions that describe a heavenly realm are usually pretty vague about what it's actually like there. It's described as this perfect, beautiful place with...
The only things I heard about heaven, I heard a lot of people talk about. They say like, you know, like golden roads, a big ass staircase, gates. You know what I'm saying? Classic. Everybody's happy. There's no death. There's no sadness. It's just everything's perfect up there.
Yeah, I just imagine it to be a perfect society.
It's a perfect society, a perfect holy land.
No pain and suffering, where we can live in bliss and worship God for eternity. But is this kind of immortality something we actually want? The deprivation account might say yes. Not existing is bad, because you'll miss all the fun. So if we live forever, that would be ideal. Well, not exactly. At a certain point, there might not actually be anything interesting for existence to give you. You wouldn't be deprived of anything. Imagine a classic idea of heaven. We all turn into angels and spend eternity singing psalms together or something. Singing psalms is probably pretty fun to do.
Hold up, this is a hard ass pick though. Oh yeah, this is a hard ass pick. Low key, look at that. Everybody ain't all the big ass angels just sitting up here like they're having a chit chat. But this nigga like, hey, look at this guy. Look at this nigga. He's God. Look at him. Look at that's God right there, bro. He put it. That's God right there. Y'all see him? Y'all see this guy? That's God right there. Oh my God.
Singing psalms together or something. Singing psalms is probably pretty fun to do for a while, but doing that for all of eternity seems a little excessive. What kind of life would be worth living forever? This isn't just 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, or 1,000,000,000 years. This exists.
But the thing is, I don't think you would be able to tell time. Like we wouldn't need to worry about time when we're in the afterlife. That's the point. God, I don't think if we're in like another realm, we're not bound by time. Because we got bound by time here. This is in order to survive and to know what the hell we need to do in our lives. But if we're in a different realm or some shit, bro, our time does not matter where we are.
Existence has no end. There are some things I love doing. Eating lamb vindaloo, solving Minesweeper.
You said what?
I'm getting really tired, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, fuck. No. You want to pass the heaven part that we can continue later?
Yeah.
Alright, bet.
Paper puzzles, listening to Beach House, whatever. But after the first 100,000 years of doing that, it would probably get a bit stale. Okay, well let's say you take a different approach, and you try to make the most of your time. You spend 1,000 years writing novels, 1,000 years painting. You learn how to play every single instrument at an expert level. You will always run out of things to do. At some point, you will have done it all. You might be able to fix this problem with some kind of amnesia system. Let's say you get bored after about 1,000 years of doing stuff. At this point, you start to lose your memories and forget what you did a few hundred years ago.
Yeah, your brain would not be able to handle that, bro.
Yeah.
It would not be able to take all that memory and absorb all that.
How much memory does like a human brain carry?
That is a very good question. How much can it carry? What is the earliest memory?
Capacity?
What's the earliest memory that you have, Chris? How old were you?
I was 3.
I was either 4 or 5. I remember like the first. It was like the day before my 5th. Yeah, the day before my 5th birthday. That's the earliest memory I have.
Yeah, bro. Mine was moving into the house I live in.
100,000,000-year-old angel. At this point, you've changed completely. You have different tastes, a different personality, and you spend your time doing
2 billion
things that
years.
you wouldn't imagine doing before. But is this really worth it?
In 2 billion years, you'd be a completely different person.
You would be a completely different man, bro.
So the person 2 billion years ago, he's dead.
He's dead. That's not him anymore. 2 billion years, bro?
You regenerate whole new cells. Like your whole body would be a completely new set of cells.
Yeah, a completely new set of cells.
Between the young angel me and the old angel me. But is it still really me? I don't even remember the previous me existing at all. My personality is totally...
Yeah, this is a far, 2 billion years. You till a billion years old. You're not gonna remember this at all.
And I'm probably hanging out with different angel friends. I don't think I'd want something like this. Alright, but maybe instead of having to try to do interesting things or entertain yourself, you just experience complete bliss for eternity. Maximum pleasure. This seems appealing at first, but it also reminds me of something. There was a study where they attached electrodes to a rat's brain that released an intense burst of pleasure. They hooked this up to a button that the rat could press whenever it wanted. As you might expect, the rat just sat there pressing the button over and over until it died. But I'm not a rat. I'm a human. And it might sound arrogant, but I somehow feel like I'm above that kind of thing. I'd probably really enjoy the intense bliss for the first few thousand years. But then I'd start to think to myself, is this all there is? Okay, so here's a heaven I think would actually be desirable. You can hang out there as long as you want, but the door is open. Once you're satisfied with all the things you've done, you can peace out. This scenario seems pretty good. The problem is, we don't really know which of these situations heaven would actually be, and some of these cases are just totally made up to fix the boredom problem. I think the standard understanding of heaven is just that you live forever in a perfect place. If that's the type of heaven we're working with, I'm not a huge fan. C tier.
Where do you rate heaven?
I'd rate it a little higher than that.
A little higher?
Yeah, it's hard to rate a perfect place. better than nothing, you know?
I don't know, because my perspective with heaven is like what he just said. You know, it's a perfect place where you can chill out. You know, see your loved ones, like people that can choose to stay. You just dip out, do whatever the fuck you want, or something like that, bro. Like that's what I like. I honestly I put it at an A. I put it at an A tier. The Afterlife tier list. We're back. Now we have Miguel in here. His sexy ass. So now we're in hell. Yeah. Now we're in hell. So all right, y'all fellas ready?
This scenario seems pretty good.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
The problem is we don't really know which of these situations heaven would actually be, and some of these cases are just totally made up to fix the boredom problem. I think the standard understanding of heaven is just that you live forever in a perfect place. If that's the type of heaven we're working with, I'm not a huge fan. C tier.
So fucking evil. Oh my god.
Inferno, the first part of Dante's Divine Comedy, is probably the most famous depiction of hell. It has 9 circles, filled with horrible punishments like boiling in pools of blood or being submerged in frozen lakes. Even Buddhism has different types of hells with intricate punishments, like the realm of the hungry ghosts. There are a lot of different depictions of what hell would actually be like, so I won't spend too much time on the details here. At least in the biblical tradition, it's important to understand that hell is a very complicated issue. From what I gather, a lot of the colloquial understanding of hell comes from medieval art and literature, and isn't actually directly based on anything the Bible says.
You ever sat down and read this thing? Technically, we're not allowed to go to the bathroom.
Some people believe that when the Bible says eternal fire, it might not necessarily mean eternal torment. It could be that you had a soul, but it gets destroyed if you're a sinner. That would make this situation similar to nothingness. You don't experience suffering for eternity, you're just denied entry into the afterlife. But for this video, I'll consider the most common interpretation of hell, some kind of eternal suffering.
What is y'all's interpretation of hell? What do y'all think it is? Or do y'all even think hell exists? That's like the real question.
Personally, yes. I think heaven and hell exist.
Okay.
I think hell is like a mix of this with a fuck ton of torture.
Oh my god, a fuck ton of
Yeah, bro. I think a fuck ton of torture,
that makes the most sense,
demons, and all that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, just eternal torment, bro.
Eternal torment.
You just or maybe it's like whatever like it's probably related to their sin.
To their sin. That would make sense. That would make sense. Me personally, I don't believe. How can I explain this? I believe there's an afterlife, but I don't personally believe that there is a hell or a heaven per se. Like I believe that your spirit, your soul goes back to source, wherever or however the fuck that is. I'm not even gonna try to guess it because I don't know. So that's what I personally believe. So if I were to think about, if we were to go to hell, I would think it would just be like separation from God. Really, I don't think it would be like eternal torment. I would think you just be separated from God in some sort of way.
Here will be particularly surprising. It's safe to say that suffering is bad. It's like burning my hand on a hot stove, like I mentioned earlier. We have an immediate, absolute aversion to the conscious experience of suffering. It's a fundamentally negative state of being. And not only does suffering suck, but our damnation would, in fact, be eternal. When I talked about heaven, I came to the conclusion that immortality itself comes with downsides, even if you're free to do whatever you want, or experience intense bliss. Here, all the bad things about eternity are combined with a constant state of suffering. Bottom tier.
Damn. Of course, bottom tier.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep that shit there.
Keep that shit there.
Ghosts, apparitions, phantoms, specters, spirits.
Ghouls. Son of a bitch.
Surprisingly, something like 18% of Americans.
Before he starts, y'all think ghosts are real? I say yes. Oh, fuck,
Yes.
who's calling me? Oh, wait.
What about you, Chris? You think ghosts are
I
real?
just don't think ghosts are real, man.
You don't think ghosts are real?
If I see them, then I'll believe it. I gotta see it to believe it, bro.
Low-key, yeah, I'm like skeptic, kinda, but I'm like more on a believing side, kind of, but not really. I don't know.
I feel like there's a lot of like ghost stories that could be explained by coincidence and fucking science.
So I do want to go to a real fucking haunted place one day. I know Chris is not gonna want to, but Miguel.
Yeah, I'm not risking it. I'm not trying to find out, bro.
I'm not trying to find.
Believe they've had an encounter with a ghost. If you were a ghost, you would be condemned to exist in the realm of the living. No clipping through surfaces and witnessing your loved ones going through their lives. Maybe this is some kind of limbo state before you go to some afterlife. But for now, we'll just consider the ghost life. The only way you can communicate with people is with a Ouija board, which, by the way, is created by Hasbro, the same company that makes Monopoly and Connect 4. Your only line of communication to your relatives is through 13-year-olds trying to induce a paranormal experience at 3 a.m. I feel like that would get pretty frustrating. Maybe you'd be condemned to haunt a particular location for some reason. Maybe you were murdered in a particular house, and now you have to spend eternity shifting around items on the counter to freak out whoever happens to live in that house in the future. Maybe some guy is being too much of a greedy capitalist on Christmas, and you need to visit him one night and show him visions, teaching him about the errors of his ways, and inspiring him to care more for others during the holiday season. In any of these cases, I think this would be a pretty bad existence. The stuff you're able to do would get really boring really.
Yeah, you're so limited on certain shit, bro. You're probably gonna be stuck in the house.
You're just in spectator mode the whole
spectator mode, bro. Look, you just
it'll be sick. That'll be kind of sick if you could like talk to other ghosts.
You probably can't, so? Low key. I think you. No, you.
I'll be sick as fuck if you could throw a fucking ghost party.
God, bro, a ghost party. That'd be cool as hell, bro. Yeah. And no one would know. You could be as loud as you fucking want, bro. Play some Cardi in that bitch, bro. What's that? Oh my, loud as fuck.
Play Cardi, play Ken.
Okay, Ken, bro. Loud ass speaker. Ghosts, see, like, bro. But see, Loki, a ghost. I might bust it up to B tier, Loki. B tier.
Yeah, bro.
After that, bro, the ghost life might be fine, Loki. You can fly anywhere on Earth, probably. I don't know.
But that just depends on like whatever the ghosts like are, bro. Like, really? Are these the ghosts that like just stay in a house?
Yeah.
Or are these like fucking poltergeists that haunt
poltergeist
PC through a virus or
Oh
something?
God, man. Those type of fucking ghosts.
Really quick. It's not quite as bad as hell with the whole eternal suffering thing, but I'll still put it in bottom tier.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Yeah, what's up with the imagery?
Incarnation, it's time to talk about reincarnation. Incarnation, more like the United States of America, with their lack of walkable cities and reliance on the automobile. Incarnation. Reincarnation is when you die and then start a new life in a different body, repeating the cycle of life and death for eternity. This idea is very, very old, and there are a lot of different takes on how exactly it might work. According to the Hindu tradition, we all have souls that get passed along through lifetimes, which explains how there's continuity from one life to the next. In very early Hindu culture, there was an almost Christian understanding of an afterlife, with a heaven and a hell. Depending on how good of a person you are in life, you end up in one of those places. But some people thought that this was too black and white. People aren't either good or bad as a whole. It's a gradation. Being good and being evil has levels to it. If you're like a slightly alright person, you'll end up in heaven with Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi. But if you're a bit of a bad dude, you'll end up in hell with Hitler. This doesn't really seem fair. But reincarnation kind of fixes this.
Yeah.
You end up reincarnating into a new existence, directly proportional to how good you are. If you're a decent enough guy, you'll get a decent reincarnation. But if you're really min-maxing your karma, you'll get a pretty sweet reincarnation. But for the Buddhists, there isn't actually anything concrete like a soul that's carrying over. Buddhism has the famous teaching.
Buddhism is so fucking interesting to me, bro. They just promote peace all over the place. That's all. That's all it is to it. They just promote peace. They don't want no violence. They're more of like your own way of life. You know, and the afterlife part, I don't know if I really I'm not skeptic about that reincarnation shit.
Of no self or anatman. which is the idea that nothing in the world has any kind of permanent essence to it, including our personhood. For the Buddhists, what we think is our self.
That's an ego death, basically.
Really?
We just lose all, like, it's like when people say they lose all sense of self, they're just here. They're just like that thing. Like they're nobody. Like they're just presence itself. If that makes sense. You ever heard people say that?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
that's
basically what Buddhism is saying. Like your soul is just like presence. It's your consciousness, basically. I don't know if they say consciousness, but it's like your soul is like your presence, and you're not attached to anything in this world. Nothing in this world defines basically what they're saying, who you are. Like they're saying like your soul is valuable enough. Nothing else can make your soul bright, even shiner, like brighter, basically. And like it's the process of you realizing that, like you like no detachments, not following cycles and shit, like just changing, like choosing every moment to be the best that you can be.
Is composed of the 5
like so tough.
It's form, the body, perception, consciousness, feeling, and fabrication.
Okay, so they do
These
use
structures are impermanent, but in the cycle of existence, that's what's being carried over into the next life. You can think of it kind of like the band King Crimson. Over the years, a lot of the members have left the band, and new ones have joined. After a few years, none of the founding members were there anymore. It's all new people, but it's still King Crimson. This is what the mind is like in Buddhism. There's no tangible core or identity to it, because it's constantly changing over time. Another example is the ship of Theseus. Imagine a ship. After a while, some of the boards start getting a bit weak, so they're replaced with new ones. New screws, new sails, everything. Eventually, every single component of the ship has been swapped out, but there's still continuity there. Ultimately, through extensive meditation and contemplation, you can achieve enlightenment, which frees you from this cycle of life and death.
That's a fucking One Piece reference, bro. I just realized that from Water 7.
Seriously?
Yes.
Philosophers also believed in a kind of
good season though, but I just can't watch One Piece. I'm sorry, it's too long.
I'm right before Water 7 too.
Right before Water 7.
I literally stopped right after Water 7.
Damn.
Watched an episode after that. Watched CP9 after all that hype. I watched one episode and I was like, you know what? Fuck no.
You know what? I'm
done.
Too
much, bro.
I'm done.
You know what? I'm done, bro.
Oh my god.
Incarnation. But they called it metempsychosis, coming from meta, to change, and empsychun, putting a soul into. Pythagoras is probably the most famous guy from this tradition that seemed to believe in it. There was an anecdote about a puppy being beaten, and Pythagoras jumped in to stop it. He argued that when he heard the dog yelping, he recognized the soul of one of his friends. So would reincarnation be desirable? Well, for me, it kind of solves both the problems of nothingness and immortality. When you die, your conscious experience doesn't cease to exist, so there's no deprivation of experience into the future. And it also wouldn't exactly get boring. Every new life presents you with a new mode of experience, new friends, new things to do. Maybe in my next life I'll be an orangutan running around, or maybe I'll be a famous musician. Who knows?
Orangutan.
And if getting reincarnated isn't really your bag, you can just get enlightened and break from the cycle. This all seems pretty good. A tier.
Yeah, I'll put that at... honestly?
I put that at A tier as well.
I put that at S tier. Look, nah, A tier, because you could be reincarnated to anything. So, fucking love bug.
Imagine reincarnating into the fucking moth that Chris just fucking destroyed with that.
Look at this one.
Alright, bro, you just turned into a fucking bug. You're dead. You're dead. You're not surviving. Oh my god. Infinite loop. I never heard of this.
You die, and then immediately begin the same life again.
Never mind.
Everything is exactly the same. You make all the same decisions. You make all the same mistakes. You work the same job. You have the same friends. And you die in the exact same way. Just to do it all over again for eternity.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
This is the famous philosophical idea of eternal return, or eternal recurrence. It started with the Stoics, who you might be familiar with from all the self-help stuff on the internet, but it really took off when Nietzsche brought it up. His first reference to it is a thought experiment in The Gay Science. It goes like this. One day...
What?
The gay science.
Demon visits you and says,
"Oh shit!
Hey man, this life you're living right now, you're gonna live this same life an infinite amount of times, and there won't be anything new.
Would you hate this, or would you accept it?" He expanded on this some more, and thus spoke Zarathustra. The main character starts off pretty terrified at the prospect of eternal
This fucking picture scared me at elementary school, bro. This shit was so disturbing.
Look at it.
Look at it, bro. Oh my. Ugh.
recurrence. But eventually they get over it, and end up embracing it. Now it's interesting to note that Nietzsche doesn't actually come out and say that he believes this is the case. He's not making any concrete metaphysical claim. He's just throwing it out there as a possibility. What this thought experiment is doing is more concerned with your reaction to that possibility. If it terrifies you, you probably aren't living the kind of life you actually want to live. But if you embrace it, you're probably on the right track. But what if this is actually the case? When you die, everything resets back to when you were first born, and you go through all the same experiences again. For me personally, this seems pretty good. At least so far, my life has been pretty enjoyable. I had a happy childhood, and my early adult life has been interesting and rewarding so far. Assuming everything goes according to plan, and my life continues to be fairly good on average, I think I would be content living this life over and over again for eternity. I guess I passed Nietzsche's test. It might sound a little...
How y'all feel about that?
I fuck with that.
That doesn't sound too bad.
That does not sound too bad. Like you're leaving the same.
A lot of the other shit, yeah.
Yeah, like my life is pretty great, you know. We all living great lives, you know. We're gonna live even more great lives in the future. Shit, I'll be fine with that, you know. Everything goes according to plan.
Depressing to know that this life is all there is. But every time I live my life, it feels like it's the first time. Even if I've already had all these experiences in the exact same way, an infinite amount of times already, it still feels like the first time. All my experiences feel fresh and new. But with that being said, I have a pretty fortunate life, to the point that I'm basically as lucky as you can get. I had good life RNG. I'm a white straight man from Canada with enough money to live comfortably. I don't face any kind of oppression, I don't have any chronic pain, I have great friends and a loving family. But unfortunately, a lot of people aren't so lucky. If eternal recurrence is true, everyone who has ever suffered...
Ooh, damn. They're just gonna have to suffer.
Yeah. Forever.
See, that's why I don't. That's the side why. Fuck. Hold up, now y'all gotta die now. Y'all have to die.
No,
y'all gotta die. That what makes me not believe this theory, because it's too crazy. It's so crazy to think about, because like everybody has a different perspective and experience. There's no way you just stay the same after you die and you just in that loop for whatever fucking reason. There's no cause for it at that point.
Yeah.
Like there's no point of actually living a life, because if you're just doing the same shit over and over again, if you're suffering over and over and over again, it doesn't like make life that unique, you know, as it is.
Have to live through that for eternity. Everyone who died in a famine, everyone who died in a war, would have to experience that over and over forever. If we're extending this to non-human animals too, every single factory-farmed cow would have to live through that horrible existence for eternity. Damn. Every instance of suffering gets magnified an infinite amount of times. The same is true of positive experiences. You will have your first kiss an infinite amount of times. But the suffering makes it seem like that might not be 100% worthwhile. If I was ranking this based solely on my own experience, I would put this pretty high. But because of all the conscious suffering, I'll compromise and stick it in B.
I'm put it at C. I'm put it at C for me. Simulation.
The simulation argument is really big among Silicon Valley guys pretending to be philosophers. But the actual simulation argument was laid out by a genuine philosopher, Nick Bostrom. The argument goes like this. He lays out 3 possible scenarios. In scenario 1, humans and other civilizations like ours probably won't advance technology far enough to create simulated realities, or creating simulated realities is impossible in the first place. In the second scenario, creating simulated realities is possible, but if a civilization creates one, it won't make a lot of them, because it requires too much processing power, or there's some other kind of limitation. And finally, creating simulated realities is possible, and there's no limit on how many get produced. These simulations would be entirely indistinguishable from ordinary reality. If we're in this scenario, we're almost certainly living in a simulated reality right now. The sheer number of simulated realities would outnumber actual reality by so much that the probability that we're...
Too many balls on the screen, bro. Oh my god. But how do you feel about the simulation?
Yeah, I just think of the Neil deGrasse Tyson theory, bro, where he was like, if we're in a simulation right now, well, it's practically what this guy's saying, but if we're in a simulation right now, then who's to say the people who made that simulation is also in a simulation, you know? It's like it just keeps going back and back.
It just keep going back and back, and yeah, we'll never know.
Reminds me of that one episode from Rick and Morty.
Literally.
Oh my god, bro.
Close to zero. Now, Bostrom's argument makes a lot of pretty hefty assumptions. The first one is that mental states don't depend on their physical instantiation. Our current conscious experience happens to emerge from biological neural networks in our brain. But according to this view, this doesn't have to be the case. If we could create a silicon processor in a computer with the exact same neural network, the same conscious experience would arise. Consciousness is a matter of information processing. There's nothing more going on. This is known as substrate independence. To be clear, this is a pretty controversial take. A lot of philosophers of mind believe that consciousness isn't reducible to computation. Some believe that consciousness does require a specific kind of substance for it to emerge, like a brain. But for the purposes of this argument, we'll assume substrate independence for consciousness. Bostrom also spends some time in his paper laying out some concrete numbers, showing how the simulation might be done. If it does end up being possible, it will be really hard. But if we assume that technology continues to progress and accelerate, it doesn't really matter how long it takes. Based on how much computing power it takes to replicate a single piece of neural tissue, we would need a computer that could perform about 10 to the 14 operations per second to replicate.
What the fuck does that mean?
Other estimates sit a bit higher, at 10 to the 16 or 10 to the 17. We'd have to generate some kind of environment for that brain too, and this really depends on how thorough we are with environmental simulation. At a minimum, we'd have to replicate the ordinary interactions humans might have with each other, or their environment. We couldn't program every single subatomic particle in the universe, so a lot of stuff would have to be left unrendered until a human came by to observe it. Based on all of this, along with a hypothetical computer design that could perform 10 to the 42 operations per second, Bostrom figures that civilizations in the...
Hey boy! Get off that phone, you're in class!
Fuck. My fault, OG.
preventing this from being possible. Now, for the record, I'm not personally sold on the simulation argument. I'm not sure substrate independence is true, and I also don't know that it's a guarantee that civilization will continue developing forever. With climate change, resource depletion, and nuclear war, it's totally possible that we'll end up destroying ourselves.
Yeah, I 100% will think that we will end up killing ourselves one day. Yep. Or something in space will just take us out.
Might be thousands of years down the line, but we need a lot of time to make a simulation. This would also explain why we haven't encountered any alien civilizations. It could be that civilizations tend to self-destruct. And even if we make it that far, and substrate independence is true, our future descendants might not even want to make simulations in the first place. Should we run a simulation of all the suffering in the world, if the beings in there have conscious experience just like us? If we created ancestor simulations of our whole civilization, we would be simulating famines, wars, and diseases as well. But for our purposes here, my take doesn't really matter. If we are in a simulation right now, what happens when we die? Maybe it's like the episode of Rick and Morty, where they play Roy. In this episode, Morty straps into a virtual reality game called Roy, where he lives through the entire life of a man named
literally the episode we just talked about, bro.
Literally, man.
Literally.
Roy. He lives through childhood, attends school, becomes a football star, gets married, has a child, spends years working at a carpet store, is diagnosed with cancer, beats the cancer, and then dies in an accident. He's then presented with a game over screen, and wakes up again as Morty. He's obviously confused because he just spent 55 years living this virtual life, only to realize that it was all a game. In a Reddit thread about simulation and death, one smug Redditor put it this way: we take our VR headset off.
Loki, I would put the VR headset on. I'm low-key too curious. I want to see how it goes.
Yeah, I would as well.
I want to see how that goes.
Off and go, wow.
Imagine that's
so
what we're in like right now.
Fuck. Don't say that, Miguel.
We're playing multiplayer, bro.
We're
multiplayer.
Multiplayer, bro. Oh my god.
Take a piss and then put the VR headset back on, ready to play a new character. This VR game possibility is kinda similar to reincarnation at first glance. You get to live through a whole life, and then swap it out for a new one when you're done. But it's not exactly the same.
But it's like an infinite loop, though. At that point.
But like, who is the guy like putting the headset on then?
You're right.
Where does he go when he dies?
Yeah, where does he go when he dies?
Same, because it's a solipsistic existence. None of the people you encounter in the simulation are real. They're just parts of the simulation, like NPCs in a video game. All the friends and connections you make are illusions. This kinda sucks.
That's real, because you can never really tell if someone is conscious. Like, Miguel, prove to me that you're conscious.
Fortnite.
See, that's not giving me any proof, man. That's not. see, it's not giving me any Fortnite. See, that's he's probably an AI.
Look at the Willem Dafoe where you said Fortnite.
Maybe
Fortnite.
Oh my god.
It's like the Matrix, where we wake up and realize we're just being harvested for.
Prove to me you're conscious.
Fuck. I'm in your walls. That's why, Miguel. That's why I'm conscious. I'm in your walls. Oh yeah. I'm actively watching you right now in your walls.
One in the simulation is still an instantiation of a real person, so all the connections you make are sort of real. But I think this case is strictly bad. At the level of ultimate reality, you're just being distracted.
Damn, that shit's barely cooked. Good God. Ugh.
So that you can be enslaved. Okay, well, maybe we're all just a tiny portion of some kind of super AI god. The AI wanted to figure out how it was created, so it started running simulations of human civilization in the lead up to technological singularity. When we die, we just merge back into the AI god consciousness. And finally, maybe it's just the same as nothingness. Once our lifetime in the ancestor simulation is over, your consciousness ceases to exist. None of these possibilities seem desirable to me, and every single one of them seems to diminish the value of our world pretty considerably. We would all just be imitations of people who supposedly existed before the singularity happened. I'll put simulation in C tier.
Yeah. I would switch Ghost from D tier all the way to B tier and switch simulation to D tier, low-key. Because everything is just fake at that point. We're one with everything. Last one, two. Oh my god, it's so loud. Jeez.
Last one.
There's an old joke that goes something like this. The Dalai Lama walks up to a hot dog stand, and he says to the man running the stand, "Hey, make me one with everything." The idea that we're all one consciousness has the connotation of being a bit hippy-dippy. It's often associated with meditation practice.
Low-key, that's kind of what I believe, though.
Hippy baloney.
Hippy baloney.
Or other techniques that supposedly reveal this truth.
Oh my god, that looks so
pretty
cool.
old. It's part of the system of reincarnation in some schools of Hinduism, where deep down we're all God or Krishna. It also emerged a few times in the Western intellectual tradition. Schopenhauer talked about this kind of thing a lot.
Oh shit! Oh hey Matt, you joined just in time. We reacting to a video right now. We're at the Afterlife tier list. You literally just came in at the last one.
Damn. All right, yeah, I'm gonna watch it with Colin.
So we just passed everything, but right now we're at the belief one where you die and you're one with everything.
Okay. All
right.
And some pretty famous physicists have described similar things, including Erwin Schrödinger, Freeman Dyson, and even Einstein. Sometimes this idea is called open individualism, which is a term coined by Daniel Kolak. There isn't really much academic philosophy on the subject, but there are a number of books about it, and it actually has a pretty sizable community on the internet. In this view, there are basically three ways you can look at personal identity.
He's 100% going to say the egg theory. I feel like he's going to say something about that.
First is closed individualism. You start existing when you're born, and you stop existing when you die. Everyone is a separate observer that exists moment to moment. This is how most people intuitively think about it. Next, there's empty individualism. Everyone has had the experience of trying to fall asleep, and suddenly, a cringy memory from your teenage years pops up. You're ashamed. You're embarrassed. What could you have possibly been thinking? It almost seems as if someone else had done it. But perhaps it was someone else. The you of the past. In every single moment, we're a different person. This is
That's what I talk about all the time. Ooh, he's getting into it. Okay, I like this.
Empty individualism. In this view, you're just a little dot on the timeline of your life. Each moment you exist is a different, unique entity that's constantly changing over time. We are just a moment of experience. And finally, there's open individualism.
And that mixes in with Buddhism, bruh. That's what I was talking about earlier.
Really?
When they talk about being in the present moment, each moment you have a choice to choose something new that you want to do. You can either choose that same cycle that you want to go through, or choose another experience to be uncomfortable. Literally,
Bro, y'all think about it, we really living life in creative mode.
In creative mode, literally.
Think about it.
Like, that goes into the theory of like when people say why does evil happen, it's because we choose to. We choose to let it happen, and that also ties in free will and all that. But I'm not gonna get deep into it. I'm not gonna yak that long.
I think it's a world that's full of like goodness, like no evil, just straight pure goodness.
No.
Bro, where there's intelligence, there's gonna be evil, bro.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Some other entity is instantiating consciousness, makes them identical to you. This might seem a little wacky at first, but stick with me here. Let's go back to closed individualism for a second. You're the same person from birth to death, but what's holding it all together? Maybe it's memory. I remember some of the stuff I did when I was 10 years old. My memory of who I used to be is the continuity between all the moments of my life. But this doesn't really work. We don't remember everything. That's not how memory works. I don't remember what I had for breakfast on New Year's Day of 2013. And there are also false memories. People can be convinced of experiences that they never actually had. Okay, so memory's out. Well, what about my body?
That ties a lot into it with anxiety too.
I've had the same body since the time I was born. But once again, this doesn't really work. The cells that make us up are constantly changing over time, like a ship of Theseus. Same goes for the brain. So all of this kind of hurts closed individualism. We can't seem to point to anything that ties it all together. So should we opt for empty individualism? Well, maybe not. Even though there doesn't seem to be anything tying it all together, it definitely seems like there's continuity in our experience. But how can we get over the weirdness of open individualism? Well, think about your conscious experience for a second. From our perspective, there's basically no gaps in our experience. We're unconscious all the time when we sleep, but there doesn't seem to be any transitionary nothingness in between. It's almost an instantaneous change from falling asleep to waking up. When I got my wisdom teeth removed, I remember laughing from the nitrous oxide as the surgeon prepared the equipment. And then, in the next moment, I was sitting in the recovery room.
Literally, when I got my ACL surgery, that's exactly how it fucking felt.
I know this off topic, but like y'all niggas they put y'all niggas to sleep when y'all got y'all wisdom tooth pulled.
No, I never
pulled.
Yeah, I never got mine pulled.
No, bro, they didn't put me to sleep, nigga. I felt everything.
You felt everything? Damn.
Yeah, bro,
wait, they didn't give you like those shots in your gums?
They numb my mouth, but like that shit, I still feel it. Like,
oh my god,
that's horrible, bro.
That's horrible, bro. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when I got ACL surgery, bro. They just put me in the gas mask, lights out, boom, up, like instant transmission. That's literally exactly how it felt, bro. Oh my god. But I was like, wait, I'm already done? They said, oh yeah, it's been like 4 hours. What? What? It's been 4. What? It's been 4. It was an instant.
You just sleeping.
Yes, bro. It was instant transmission, bro.
They could have touched your butt, bro.
They could have.
Hey, you know.
It was as if
I hope not. I hope not.
No time had passed. It was a seamless transition. This continuity lasts from our first experiences as children until the instant we die. And importantly, from our center of awareness, this block of experience doesn't have a beginning or end. We just kind of find ourselves in the world, as if we've always been here. Objectively, we weren't always here, but it feels like this awareness is a constant because it's all we are. The only stable thing about me is my immediate conscious experience. It's the only thing I can really point to and say, that's me, because my body, my memories, and everything else is constantly changing. But here's the kicker. That immediate conscious experience is the same thing that other people have to point to. What you call I is the same thing that I call I. Now, with all that being said, I'm not totally sold on open individualism. But once again, let's just roll with it. Let's say we are all the same person. We're an identical subject of experience, but we're just different parts of it. So what does this say about death? Well, one suggestion might be that when we die, the illusion ends. As MC Ride once said, "My experience is a momentary lapse of reason." Our identification with ourselves as one particular human stops, and we return to the ocean of being. But what would this be like? Would we experience all conscious experiences that all beings are having simultaneously? Almost like you're sitting in front of a bunch of screens, watching every single experience play out. This is a pretty tricky thing to wrap your head around, and it's unclear whether this state of being would be positive, negative, or neutral. But you might also consider the fact that right now, you're only one instantiation of consciousness. Maybe instead of returning to some default, where you're everything at once, you cycle through every instance of consciousness. This picture might look something like the short story The Egg by Andrew Weir. In this story, the main character, you, die in a car crash. You meet God, who explains that you've already reincarnated loads of times before. In your next incarnation, you'll be a Chinese peasant girl in 540 AD. In fact, you've actually been
hell no, Jigsaw.
No, Jigsaw.
Wait, hold on. No. Wait. Can I choose? Please? Come on. I can add on some challenges here and there, bro. But come on, bro.
Incarnated as
I
every
think I've
single
heard this
human
theory.
being
Like
who's
I've heard this before.
ever lived.
There's a video about it. There's like an animation. You get like fucking millions of fucking views.
You were Abraham Lincoln, Adolf Hitler, and Jesus. You were also every Holocaust victim and every follower of Jesus. This whole process is meant as a kind of test. Once you've lived every single human life, you become a god just like him. The universe was created so that you understand that every time you hurt someone, you're really just hurting yourself. Every time you do something good for someone, you do it for yourself. This picture is a lot like reincarnation, but with a few key differences. First, it seems to be human only. You won't come back as a mosquito or a lion. And secondly, it doesn't seem to be tied to any kind of karma. You'll be cycling through every single human life. So the actions you take in your current life don't really have any meaningful bearing on your next lives, aside from the fact that you'll experience the other side of every interaction. This story also has a really important ethical implication that's kind of similar to the Veil of Ignorance thought experiment by John Rawls. Imagine you have no idea who you will be in society. You don't know your ethnicity, your gender, or your social status. Rawls argues that we should attempt to structure society from this perspective. Our principles should not be based on our current life and all the circumstances we happen to find ourselves in, but they should be based impartially, as if we could end up as anyone in society. The egg scenario is a lot like this because you're actually everyone. So the doctrine of do to others whatever you would like them to do to you takes on a very literal meaning because the others are also you. Now, this is a tricky one to rank. I'm not really sure what to think about returning to the ocean of being. It's hard to say what exactly that would be like. But as for the human-to-human exhaustive reincarnation idea, I think that's really great. You would quite literally get the full spectrum of human experience. Every instance of suffering, pain, joy.
But then that's not really the afterlife though, then. I don't know. It's like we tend to connect the afterlife with this world a lot to still feel like we're here in this world sometimes, you know? That's what I feel like this theory is going to. Because, you know, some of them, you know, we're not on Earth, but, like, sometimes there's still a lot of connection to Earth. I don't know. I feel like the afterlife would be a lot different than that. And you can sometimes have connection to Earth, but, like, you know, you don't fully, you probably wouldn't want to. Probably. At a certain point. Yeah. Hey, that's
Ecstasy
the end, right?
and love.
Oh.
I think that's easily the most interesting possible situation. S tier.